In 2024, Cummins, one of the largest diesel engine manufacturers in America, was caught installing software defeat devices designed to cheat federal emissions tests. The penalty was $2 billion, the largest Clean Air Act fine in United States history. But here is what the news did not tell you. The emissions equipment that Cummins was pretending worked correctly is the same equipment that is bankrupting independent truckers from coast to coast. A single aftertreatment failure now costs $15,000 to $20,000, and the engine manufacturers knew these systems were unreliable before they ever bolted them onto a truck. We are going to break down the engineering failures that are destroying American truckers and reveal why a diesel engine from 1998 might be the smartest purchase you can make today. If you talk to any long-haul trucker who has been on the road for more than 20 years, they will tell you the same thing. The trucks used to be simple. You had an engine, a turbo, a fuel system, and an exhaust pipe that went straight out the back. A Caterpillar 3406 or a Cummins N14 would run for $750,000 to over 1 million miles with nothing more than oil changes and the occasional injector. But starting in 2004, the Environmental Protection Agency began forcing manufacturers to add layer after layer of emissions equipment under the hood. First came exhaust gas recirculation, then the diesel particulate filter in 2007, then selective catalytic reduction with diesel exhaust fluid in 2010. Every layer added thousands of dollars to the purchase price and introduced dozens of new sensors that could shut your truck down on the highway if even one of them failed. Today, a new Class 8 truck costs around $195,000, and roughly $20,000 to $40,000 of that is nothing but emissions equipment. There are over 3.9 million Class 8 trucks on American roads, 97% diesel-powered, and 96% of the carriers operating them are classified as small businesses. These are not mega fleets. These are families trying to make a living. But the real cost is not what they pay at the dealership. It is what happens when those systems start breaking down, and they always break down. To understand why every trucker in America is furious, you need to understand what the Environmental Protection Agency bolted onto these engines. The first wave hit in 2004 when the agency slashed nitrogen oxide limits and forced manufacturers to adopt exhaust gas recirculation, called EGR. EGR takes hot, sooty exhaust gas and routes it back into the intake manifold to lower combustion temperatures. It does reduce emissions, but it also pumps carbon deposits through the engine, clogs intake ports, and relies on an EGR cooler that is notorious for cracking. When that cooler cracks, it leaks engine coolant directly into the cylinders, and that can destroy the entire engine. An EGR cooler replacement costs around $4,000 at a dealer, and some trucks go through 2 of them before they even reach 200,000 miles. The second wave arrived in 2007 when the EPA demanded a 90% reduction in particulate matter. That made the diesel particulate filter mandatory on every heavy-duty diesel sold in the country. The diesel particulate filter, called DPF, is a ceramic honeycomb that traps soot and periodically burns it off through a process called regeneration at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When the filter gets too clogged, the truck has to perform an active regeneration, which means pulling over and idling for up to 45 minutes while the system burns off the soot. If you are on a delivery schedule, that is time you cannot afford. A DPF replacement costs between $2,000 and $10,000, and the manufacturers originally promised those filters would last 400,000 miles or more. That turned out to be a fantasy. But the final and most devastating blow came in 2010 when the EPA mandated the selective catalytic reduction system and diesel exhaust fluid. The diesel exhaust fluid, called DEF, is a urea solution that gets injected into the exhaust to convert nitrogen oxides into harmless nitrogen and water vapor. It costs truckers $1,000 to $2,000 per year in fluid alone. But the real nightmare is the Derate system. If the DF runs low, or if a single sensor malfunctions, and these trucks carry over 50 emissions-related sensors, the engine computer progressively cuts power until the truck slows to as little as 5 miles per hour. Picture an 80,000-pound rig crawling up a highway on ramp at walking speed because a $50 sensor threw a fault code. The EPA administrator himself admitted in August 2025 that these derate systems caused needless frustration, operational delays, and real economic hardship for countless truckers and farmers. And here is where the story gets truly outrageous. The fleet benchmarking data shows that the average aftertreatment system breaks down every 214,000 miles. For a trucker running 100,000 miles per year, that is an emissions-related failure roughly every 2 years. The American Trucking Association estimates that after-treatment repairs now account for 13% of total Class 8 maintenance costs. One fleet called Batesville Logistics saw their exhaust maintenance go from $1,200 per month to $27,000 per month. That is an 1,800% increase. When you add in towing, hotel bills, missed deliveries, and $450 to $2,000 per day in lost revenue, a single catastrophic failure can cost an owner-operator $15,000 to $20,000. But wait, it gets worse. The manufacturers building this equipment have been caught cheating on the very standards they were forcing truckers to comply with. In 1998, 7 engine companies representing 95% of the market, including Caterpillar, Cummins, and Detroit Diesel, were caught using defeat devices that tripled real-world nitrogen oxide emissions while passing the lab test. That scandal cost the industry over $1 billion, and the EPA responded by pulling the 2004 compliance deadline forward 15 months as punishment, which meant manufacturers had even less time to develop reliable systems. Then the cheating continued at an even larger scale. In 2024, Cummins paid approximately $2 billion after regulators discovered defeat device software in 630,000 Ram pickup trucks. The software reduced emissions controls during normal driving while passing certification tests, the exact same scheme Volkswagen used in Dieselgate. In January 2025, Hino Motors, a subsidiary of Toyota, pleaded guilty to a decade-long criminal conspiracy for fabricating emissions data on over 105,000 engines and was fined $1.6 billion. Daimler paid $1.5 billion in 2020 for defeat devices in 250,000 vehicles. And then there is Navistar, which might be the most shocking case of all. Navistar was the only manufacturer that tried to meet the 2010 standards without using DEF. They bet everything on an EGR-only approach called Max Force. Internal documents revealed that their senior vice president of sales testified under oath that they did not test the engines before shipping them to customers. Board members were told the physics of the EGR strategy was not sound, but they shipped the trucks anyway. The fallout was catastrophic. Navistar absorbed over $2 billion in warranty claims and buybacks. A $135 million class action settlement covered 66,000 trucks. Market share collapsed from 26% to 14%. And the EPA extracted another $52 million after discovering that Navistar had disguised nearly 8,000 engines built in 2010 as 2009 models to dodge the stricter rules. So the manufacturers cheated, the equipment fails constantly, and the trucker is left holding the bill. It is no surprise that over 550,000 truck owners have made the same desperate calculation. They deleted the emissions equipment entirely. A full delete removes the diesel particulate filter, the exhaust gas recirculation system, and the selective catalytic reduction system, and it reprograms the engine computer. It costs $3,000 to $10,000. Truckers who have done it report fuel economy gains of 2 to 4 miles per gallon, horsepower increases, and the elimination of regeneration cycles, derate events, and endless sensor failures. but deleting is a federal crime under the Clean Air Act, and between 2020 and 2023, the EPA collected over $55 million in penalties from 172 enforcement actions against delete kit sellers. The agency says a fully deleted truck emits 310 times more nitrogen oxides than a compliant vehicle. Then in January 2026, the Department of Justice announced it would no longer pursue criminal charges for emissions tampering. The underlying law has not changed, but the signal from Washington is unmistakable. So the question every trucker is now asking is simple: what should I actually do? The answer depends on where you are in your career, but there are three paths that smart operators are taking right now. The first is to seek out PAR-E emissions trucks. The legendary engines from before 2004, the Caterpillar C15, the Cummins N14, and the Detroit Series 60 routinely hit 750,000 to over 1 million miles between overhauls. These engines feature rebuildable wet sleeve designs, minimal electronics, and zero sensors capable of shutting the truck down. Today, a clean pre-emissions Peterbilt 379 with a rebuilt Cat engine commands $80,000 to $140,000 on the USD market, and trucks built before the year 2000 are exempt from electronic logging device mandates. The demand got so intense that companies started building glider kits. Brand new truck bodies with pre-emissions engines dropped in, and that market exploded from a few hundred units per year to over 10,000 by 2017. That combination of mechanical simplicity, proven reliability, and regulatory freedom has made pre-emissions trucks the most sought-after segment in the used commercial vehicle market. The second path is natural gas. Cummins now offers a 500 horsepower X15N engine that runs on compressed or liquefied natural gas and produces 90% lower nitrogen oxide emissions than even the newest diesel trucks. There is no diesel particulate filter, no diesel exhaust fluid tank, no selective catalytic reduction system, and most importantly, no derate events. The engine will never cut your power to 5 miles per hour because of a sensor fault. You can get this engine in a Kenworth T680 or a Peterbilt 579. Fuel costs are competitive, the maintenance profile is dramatically simpler, and for truckers running fixed routes near natural gas fueling stations, the economics already work. Adoption sits at about 2% of the Class 8 fleet, but fleets running dedicated lanes are adopting fast. The third path is to understand what is coming in 2027. The EPA has finalized standards that will cut nitrogen oxide limits by another 80% and extend useful life requirements to 650,000 miles. New trucks could see price increases of $20,000 to $25,000 on top of current levels, and the American Trucking Association has requested a delay of 4 years. If you are planning to buy, buying before those standards take effect is the last window to avoid the next wave of unproven technology. History has shown that the first generation of every new emission system is the most problematic. The 2007 DPF trucks and the 2010 SCR trucks were significantly worse than the systems refined 5 years later. Early adopters paid the price. If anyone suggests you wait for electric trucks, consider that the average electric Class 8 costs $435,000, over twice the price of diesel. Hino Motors, the most prominent electric truck startup, declared bankruptcy in February 2025. The diesel emission story is not a simple tale of government overreach or corporate greed. It is both, happening at the same time. The EPA says its regulations prevent 26,000 premature deaths and deliver $70 billion in annual health benefits. Those numbers are real, but the cost landed squarely on small business truckers who move 72% of America's freight, while the manufacturers were repeatedly caught shipping systems they knew would fail. 500,000 trucks were illegally stripped. 570,000 tons of excess nitrogen oxide went into the atmosphere. And an entire generation of owner-operators will tell you the same thing. The truck was better before they tried to fix it. If you found this breakdown valuable, Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next investigation. We have a deep dive coming on why the 2027 regulations could reshape the entire trucking industry, and you are going to want to see those numbers before you sign your next lease.